The expansion that changed coffee forever. After Howard Schultz took control of Starbucks in 1987, the company had just a handful of stores. To many people, it looked like another small coffee chain trying to survive in a competitive market. But Schultz wasn't thinking about the next store. He was thinking about the next generation. Every new Starbucks location followed the same philosophy. It wasn't enough to open a coffee shop. Every store had to feel familiar. Whether you walked into one in Seattle, New York, London, Tokyo, Dubai, or Mumbai, the colors remained warm. The music remained calm. Marintan. The smell of freshly ground coffee greeted customers before they even reached the counter. Every store quietly whispered the same message. You belong here. That consistency became one of Starbucks' greatest strengths. Whether someone was visiting their neighborhood Starbucks or traveling halfway across the world, they knew exactly what experience awaited them. People weren't buying certainty, they were buying comfort. And comfort creates loyalty. Within a few years, Starbucks wasn't opening one store at a time. It was opening hundreds, then thousands. One country became five. Five became 20. 20 became 50. Eventually, Starbucks expanded into more than 80 countries, becoming one of the most recognizable consumer brands in the world. What started as one small coffee shop in Seattle had become a global symbol of modern coffee culture. More than just coffee, most companies become successful by selling one product. Starbucks became successful by selling moments. The menu continued expanding. Espresso, cappuccino, latte, mocha, americano, cold brew, refreshers, tea, bakery products, sandwiches, seasonal drinks. One product, however, completely changed the company's future: the Frappuccino. When Starbucks introduced the Frappuccino, it wasn't simply offering another drink. It was attracting an entirely new generation of customers. People who didn't even enjoy traditional coffee suddenly found something they loved. Teenagers, families, students, tourists. The Frappuccino became more than a beverage. It became a cultural phenomenon. Then came another brilliant idea: limited time seasonal drinks. The pumpkin spice latte. Every autumn, customers waited for its return. Social media filled with photos. People stood in line. Friends met just to try the first pumpkin spice latte of the season. Starbucks had achieved something remarkable. It turned the arrival of a beverage into an annual event. That's not marketing, that's culture. The digital revolution. While many restaurants were still relying on traditional ordering systems, Starbucks looked toward the future. The company invested heavily in technology. Customers could order through the Starbucks mobile app before even reaching the store. Payments became faster. Rewards became personalized. Loyalty points encouraged repeat visits. The Starbucks Rewards program became one of the most successful customer loyalty systems in the retail industry. Instead of waiting for customers to return by chance, Starbucks gave them a reason to come back. Every purchase earned stars. Every star brought rewards. Free drinks, exclusive offers, birthday gifts, special promotions. It wasn't simply a loyalty program, it became a habit. Today, millions of customers use the Starbucks app regularly, making it one of the most successful digital ecosystems in the food and beverage industry. Starbucks didn't just embrace technology, It used technology to strengthen human relationships. When success became a problem, ironically, Starbucks' greatest challenge arrived after its greatest success. The company expanded so rapidly that something began to disappear. The soul of Starbucks. Stores became faster, processes became more automated. Machines replaced traditional espresso preparation. The warm aroma of freshly ground coffee became less noticeable. Some loyal customers felt Starbucks had become too commercial. Howard Schultz noticed it too. He realized the company had become incredibly efficient, but it was slowly losing the emotional experience that made it special. Then the global financial crisis struck in 2008. Consumers reduced spending, sales declined, hundreds of stores closed, thousands of employees lost their jobs. Investors began questioning whether Starbucks had already reached its peak. For the first time in years, the future looked uncertain. The comeback. Instead of hiding from the crisis, Howard Schultz returned as CEO. His first priority wasn't opening more stores. It was rebuilding the Starbucks experience. He made a decision that shocked the business world. Starbucks temporarily closed thousands of stores across the United States for several hours. Not because of a financial problem, not because of equipment failure, but to retrain every barista. Some critics called it expensive. Others called it unnecessary. Schultz saw it differently. If Starbucks wanted customers to believe in the brand again, employees had to believe in it first. Coffee quality improved. Customer service improved. Store experiences improved. Innovation returned. The company recovered. Sometimes, the bravest decision isn't growing faster. It's slowing down long enough to remember why you started. Entering China. For many global companies, China represented one of the world's most challenging markets. Different culture, different customer behavior, different traditions. Many international businesses struggled. Starbucks chose a different strategy. Instead of forcing Western coffee culture onto Chinese consumers, it adapted. Stores became larger. Menus reflected local preferences. Tea-based beverages complemented coffee. Starbucks positioned itself not simply as a coffee company, but as a premium social destination. The strategy worked. China eventually became Starbucks' second largest market after the United States. It proved another important lesson. Global companies don't succeed by making every country identical. They succeed by respecting local cultures while preserving their core identity. The stock market story. Starbucks entered the public stock market in 1992 with a vision far bigger than the number of stores it owned at the time. Investors weren't just buying shares in a coffee company. They were investing in a new way of thinking about consumer experiences. In the early years, the stock reflected the excitement of rapid expansion. As Starbucks opened stores across the United States and entered international markets, revenue and earnings grew steadily. Investors rewarded the growth with higher valuations because they believed the company could continue expanding for many years. Like every great company, Starbucks experienced difficult periods: the dot-com crash, the global financial crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, inflation, and changing consumer behavior all created pressure on the business. During these periods, the share price experienced sharp declines, reminding investors that even world-class companies face uncertainty. Yet, what impressed long-term investors wasn't the absence of challenges. It was Starbucks' ability to recover. The company consistently generated strong cash flows, maintained an asset-light expansion strategy in many international markets through licensed stores, and invested in digital technology that strengthened customer loyalty. Over the decades, Starbucks also returned capital to shareholders through dividends and share repurchases, making it attractive not only to growth investors but also to many long-term income-focused investors. Professional investors rarely evaluate Starbucks based only on the price of its stock. They look at revenue growth, operating margins, return on invested capital, cash generation, same-store sales growth, customer loyalty, international expansion, and management's ability to adapt. These factors have played a much bigger role in Starbucks' long-term success than short-term movements in the share price. The Starbucks story reminds us that successful investing is often about understanding businesses, not simply watching stock charts. The people behind the green apron. There is another reason Starbucks became more than a coffee company. It understood that the people serving the coffee were just as important as the coffee itself. Starbucks calls its employees partners. That word is intentional. The company wanted employees to feel that they were not simply working for Starbucks, they were participating in the success of the company. Howard Schultz understood this personally. He grew up in a working-class family in Brooklyn, and he often spoke about the insecurity his family experienced when his father became injured and had no meaningful employment protection. That experience influenced the way Schultz thought about benefits and opportunity at Starbucks. The company became known for offering benefits to eligible employees, including healthcare and historically, equity through its Bean stock program. The philosophy was simple. If employees help create the value of the brand, they should have an opportunity to share in that value. That idea became part of the Starbucks identity. Because a coffee shop is different from a factory. A machine can manufacture a product consistently, but a person creates an experience. A smile cannot be automated. A genuine conversation cannot be programmed. Remembering a regular customer's order cannot be replaced easily by technology. And that is why Starbucks has always depended on the human relationship between the when a name becomes a relationship. Think about what happens when you walk into a Starbucks. Someone asks your name. You say it. They write it on your cup. Then, when your drink is ready, someone calls your name. It sounds incredibly simple. But there is something powerful about hearing your own name in a crowded room. For a few seconds, you become more than a transaction. You become a person. You look up. You collect your drink. Maybe the barista remembers you. Maybe you come back the next day. And eventually, a stranger behind the counter becomes someone familiar. That is the genius of the Starbucks experience. The coffee creates the first interaction. The relationship creates the reason to return. And when customers repeatedly return, Starbucks doesn't just gain revenue. It gains a habit. That habit is incredibly valuable because a company can spend millions trying to convince someone to buy a product once. But it can become part of someone's daily routine. It doesn't need to convince them every morning. The customer simply comes back. The digital relationship. Starbucks eventually took this relationship from the physical store into the digital world. The Starbucks app allowed customers to order ahead, pay digitally, earn rewards, receive personalized offers, and interact with the brand even when they weren't standing inside a store. The company was no longer competing only for someone's coffee purchase. It was competing for a place inside someone's daily routine. Wake up, open the app, order coffee, collect the drink, earn stars, return tomorrow. The physical store created the emotion, the digital ecosystem created the habit. Together, they became a powerful business model, the business behind the CUP. But behind all the emotion is a very serious business. Starbucks makes most of its revenue through company operated stores where it sells beverages, food, and merchandise directly to customers. It also earns money through licensed stores, packaged products, royalties, and partnerships. The licensed store model is especially interesting because Starbucks doesn't necessarily need to own and operate every store itself. In a licensed arrangement, the local partner takes responsibility for many operating costs and investments, while Starbucks can earn revenue through products, royalties, and licensing. That creates another engine for expansion. The company can grow its global presence without carrying exactly the same capital burden for every location. And this is where the Starbucks story becomes much bigger than coffee. It is a combination of retail, branding, real estate, technology, customer loyalty, supply chains, licensing, and consumer psychology. The drink is what the customer sees. The business model is what the investor sees. The stock market journey. Starbucks became a publicly traded company on 26 June 1992, listing on Nasdaq under the symbol SBVX at $17 per share. After 6-2-for-1 stock splits, that original IPO price is equivalent to about 27 cents per share on a split-adjusted basis. The stock closed its first trading day at $21.50, or about 34 cents after adjusting for those splits. That number tells only the beginning of the story. The real story is what happened afterward. As Starbucks expanded from a small American coffee chain into a global brand, investors began treating the company as something much more valuable than a restaurant business. They were buying into a repeatable consumer habit, a powerful brand, international expansion, and a business capable of generating substantial cash. The stock went through multiple major cycles. There were periods when investors believed Starbucks could do almost no wrong. There were also periods when the market questioned whether the company had expanded too quickly, whether stores had become too standardized, whether competition was increasing, and whether the Starbucks experience was losing its magic. The company went through 6-2-for-1 stock splits between 1993 and 2015, reflecting the enormous increase in the stock's value over its public market history. And the long-term numbers became extraordinary. In 2023, Starbucks stated that its split-adjusted share price had increased by approximately 36,000% from its IPO. While including dividends, the total return was approximately 41,000% over that period. But this is where investors need to be careful. A historical return does not guarantee a future return. The stock has experienced severe declines during difficult periods, and the business continues to face risks, including coffee costs, labor expenses, inflation, competition, changing consumer preferences, international challenges, and the enormous cost of maintaining thousands of physical stores. That is why serious investors don't ask only how much has the stock risen. They ask, can the business continue producing strong returns on the capital invested in it? They study revenue. They study operating margins. They study comparable store sales. They study transactions. They study average ticket size. They study the Starbucks turnaround. And Starbucks is once again in the middle of a transformation. After a period of weaker performance, Brian Niccol became chairman and CEO and launched the Back to Starbucks strategy. The idea was almost poetic. Go back to what made Starbucks special. Better service, better coffee houses, better customer connections, more support for employees, a stronger sense of hospitality. The company began investing heavily in labor hours and store operations while simplifying parts of the organization. It also began closing underperforming locations as part of its restructuring. By the end of fiscal 2025, Starbucks had 40,990 stores globally after 627 stores were closed as part of the restructuring program. Then the numbers began showing signs of improvement. In the second quarter of fiscal 2026, global comparable store sales increased 6.2%, while consolidated revenue increased 9% to about $9.5 billion. Starbucks also reported stronger transactions and raised its fiscal 2026 guidance. The company had more than 41,000 stores across approximately 90 markets by early 2026. But the turnaround is not finished. And perhaps that is what makes the Starbucks story interesting. The company that once disrupted the coffee industry is now trying to rediscover the qualities that made it special in the first place. The price of growth. Every successful company eventually faces the same temptation. Grow faster. Open more stores. Sell more products. Enter more countries. Increase revenue. But growth has a hidden danger. A company can become so large that it forgets what made people love it. Starbucks experienced that tension. The more stores it opened, the more difficult it became to preserve the intimacy of a neighborhood coffee shop. The more drinks it introduced, the more complicated operations became. The more customers it served, the harder it became to make every customer feel special. And the bigger the company became, the harder it was to remain personal. That is the paradox of Starbucks. Its greatest achievement created its greatest challenge. It made a small neighborhood coffee experience global. But the bigger it became, the more carefully it had to protect that original feeling. The legacy. So what exactly did Starbucks change? It changed the way millions of people think about coffee. Before Starbucks, coffee was often treated as a commodity. After Starbucks, coffee became an experience. Before Starbucks, cafes were places to buy a drink. Starbucks helped turn them into destinations. Before Starbucks, a customer's name was irrelevant to the transaction. Starbucks helped turn the name into part of the experience. And before Starbucks, few people imagined that a coffee company could build a global brand powerful enough to influence culture, technology, retail, real estate, and consumer behavior. But perhaps Howard Schultz's greatest achievement wasn't creating a giant coffee company. It was understanding something deeply human. People don't always remember what you sold them. They remember how you made them feel. The lesson. For entrepreneurs, the Starbucks story contains a powerful lesson. Don't ask only what product you are selling. Ask what feeling you're creating. A coffee can be copied. A cup can be copied. A menu can be copied. A store design can be copied. Even technology can eventually be copied. But a deeply established emotional relationship with millions of customers is much harder to reproduce. Starbucks built its competitive advantage by turning a simple commodity into an experience. And then it turned that experience into a habit. That habit became a brand. That brand became a global business. And that business became a publicly traded company whose story has rewarded and challenged investors for more than 3 decades. The last CUP. Imagine going back to that first Starbucks store at Pike Place Market in 1971. There is no global empire, no mobile app, no thousands of stores, no pumpkin spice latte, no giant international supply chain, no stock ticker, no millions of loyalty members, just a small store selling coffee beans. The founders could never have known what would happen next. They couldn't have imagined that their little Seattle business would help change coffee culture around the world. They couldn't have imagined people would travel thousands of miles and still recognize the same green siren logo. They couldn't have imagined that a person's name written with a marker on a paper cup would become part of a global customer experience. And they certainly couldn't have imagined that their company would become a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded business. But perhaps the most beautiful part of the Starbucks story is that underneath all the numbers, the original idea hasn't completely disappeared. A person walks through a door. Someone asks their name. Coffee is prepared. Their name is called. They pick up their cup. And for one small moment, in the middle of a busy world, someone knows they are there. That is Starbucks. Not just coffee, not just a store, a moment of recognition, a place between home and work, a familiar face in an unfamiliar city, a name on a cup. And sometimes that's enough to make an ordinary morning feel a little less ordinary. Because the greatest brands don't simply sell products, they become part of people's lives. And Starbucks became part of millions of them. One cup, one customer, and one name at a time. This is the story of Starbucks. And this is the Corporate Atlas. Mapping the stories behind the world's greatest companies.